Travel writers and wannabe travel writers, have you ever failed trying to come up with an idea for a story? I have, I just did, and I thought it would be fun and possibly interesting for some of you, maybe even edifying to kind of see how I did it and why I might have failed. It's also the first time I ever tried to use an AI language model. I was using Grok to try and help me with the ideation process. So I'm just going to go through it. So this is my newsletter, my weekly newsletter, where every week I collect 75 or more calls for pitches from journalists and editors for people to dive into and pitch. We do the same thing if you don't want to wait every week. We do the same thing every day in the travel writing school. But one of the pitches that came through recently was from Stephanie at Business Insider. She was looking for hot take essay pitches, short 500 word pieces that get people talking. Now I thought, okay, 500 words, that's not very long. I can bash that kind of story out these days in a couple of hours, maybe a couple more hours to fine tune and tweak. Doesn't pay very well, Business Insider. Rates start at 220, but if I can bump her up to 250 or 300 for a few hours work, it might be worth it. She gave a couple of example stories that she'd already published. I don't give money at weddings anymore. My gift is my presents. And egg prices are soaring. Luckily, it's easier than ever to live without them. And I thought, okay, let's try it. Let's just have a go. Because like I say, it's not a huge job. And if you can get this sort of gig regularly, then those little $250 pay packets, they add up at the end of a couple of months. Unfortunately, I was having a very bad day creatively. Couldn't really think of anything. There's nothing top of mind. And this is also why when you do have a good idea, when you're out and about, write it down or speak it into a note, into a voice note thing, because you never know when they might be useful. But then I saw over here Grok, and I thought, okay, let's see. You know, people are using AI for all sorts of things these days. Let's see if Grok can be of any assistance. So, headed over to Grok, and I gave it a very short little prompt. An editor at Business Insider has put out this call for pitches. Pasted the call for pitches from Stephanie. I added the headlines of the example stories that she had given, and I asked Grok, give me a few examples of stories I could pitch for this call. And so it did. I stopped tipping at restaurants. I'm done with birthday parties for kids. I refuse to buy bottled water anymore. I've ghosted family group chats. Not bad. You can imagine those on a Business Insider page, probably. The problem was they didn't really chime with me. They weren't really true for me. So I asked it for a few more with a travel angle. Came up with a few more. I'm done with overpriced tourist traps. I stopped checking bags on flights. Hostels are better than hotels. I don't take photos on vacation anymore. 2, 3, and 4, again, didn't really chime with me, weren't really relevant or true for me. But this one, I'm done with overpriced tourist traps. Give me a local dive bar over the Eiffel Tower any day. That did resonate, actually, with what I think a lot of the time when I'm on vacation or traveling somewhere. And it also reminded me of a piece that I did a few years ago. This one, for CNN, Why I Hate Museums. This thing went crazy viral, particularly with people in the museum community and museum industry. And I thought, this idea from Grok, if you could just kind of expand out the idea of museums and kind of not liking museums and do it for various different overpriced tourist traps type things, that might work. And I had recently been to London. We'd tried to book tickets, or we thought about booking tickets to see The Lion King in the West End. Looked at the prices, and it was going to be nearly $1,000 for 4 tickets to The Lion King. So I've got kind of there's something recent here that I could add, and I thought, okay, this might be worth it. So I started putting together a little pitch, and this was it. I kind of tweaked it, fine-tuned the idea. I'm done with overpriced tourist traps. Give me a rainy park walk and a dive bar over a West End show any day, referencing that weekend in London, how I just kind of walked around the parks, went to the zoo, trip to New York's Times Square recently, but it still wasn't quite right. And so I went back to Grok, asked it for a few more ideas, didn't really have anything, even kind of fine-tuned the prompt to make things more current and more topical and more contrarian, because a lot of the ideas it was coming up with were fairly standard, not fairly obvious things that had probably been written about many times before. And it came up with a couple of ideas that were reasonable. Airbnb's crackdown on parties is a win for travellers. That's topical. It's in the news right now. Overhyped solo travel is a scam. Cruise ships are the future of travel. So again, it kind of has a decent grasp of the kinds of headlines that would work using that prompt, using the examples from Business Insider. But nothing was really, again, chiming for me better than this one. But I wanted to give it a break, so I went out for a run, came back, had a shower. It's amazing what a bit of exercise and a shower can do for your mind. And I realised that here, that it's actually this phrase that I was struggling with, overpriced tourist traps. It's trite, it's pretty trite. It's rather hackneyed and almost cliched these days to complain about overpriced tourist traps. And so I thought the story itself was doable. But having that in the working title in your pitch to an editor is a little bit, you're going to raise eyebrows, or at least it's going to sound a bit dull and boring, which I've said about in previous videos you don't want to be. So I changed it then, where are we, to this. So I replaced overpriced tourist traps with sensational bucket list experiences. Now this suddenly has a little bit of edge to it, sounds a little bit more novel. Again, it's the same kind of story idea, but we've heard so much about bucket lists, checking them off. Everyone should have a bucket list, and particularly in the social media area where everything goes on Instagram, and we all should be doing these grand, impressive things every day, every vacation, every chance we get. Giving the contrarian view to that, saying, no, actually, I just like doing kind of low-key stuff. Could be kind of interesting. Even that, I felt, oh, well, hold on. Bucket lists, the whole idea, the whole concept of a bucket list has been around for many years already. Generally, when that is the case, the contrarian view has also been around for many years. And lo and behold, when I did a quick Google search for why I hate bucket lists, dozens and dozens of blog posts and other articles quitting the bucket list mentality. We love to hate the bucket list. Don't talk to me about bucket lists. The case against the bucket list. Why I will never be a bucket list traveller. Goes on and on and on. So generally these things, they have kind of a formula. There's a thing, which is like the bucket list. Then there's the backlash to the thing, which is the backlash to the bucket list, which is going on here. So maybe, having seen that, I thought, well, okay, maybe the idea could be actually why bucket lists are great. So we've had the thing, the bucket list. We've had the contrarian view, the backlash. No, bucket lists are horrible. Now we have the backlash to the backlash. No, they're actually okay. They're great, and there's good reasons for them to be, followed and done and that sort of stuff. But to be honest, at this point, I was kind of over it, and I've closed my mind off for the day. To be honest now, and I should just say that just because a piece has been done before doesn't necessarily mean you can't do it again if you're moving the story on a step. If you're taking it on a step further, revealing something new, arguing something novel, or giving a new take or a new angle on this kind of concept, on this idea, it still could be doable. But the pitch I had here was just saying, no, I hate bucket lists. I want something low-key instead. So given that was basically the same as all these other things that have been done, the next step really would be to say, actually, bucket lists are okay. There's a whole lot you can get out of bucket list travel and having a bucket list mindset and that sort of thing. I'm not even sure if I want to do that, because it would probably, again, it doesn't kind of chime with me. It just doesn't sound very me-ish. So like I say, I'm closing this off for the day. I might come back to it tomorrow and try and do a video on something that's a bit more successful in terms of the ideation. Did Grok fail here? I don't know. I don't think so. I think its ideas were okay, but not particularly great. So I think this is in this particular case study anyway, it's not showing me any great kind of journalistic prowess that too many of us should be worried by. I think it's more of a case of me not having the creative chops today, maybe not having enough coffee. But anyway, I'll come back to this maybe tomorrow and see how I do. But I hope that was useful, or at least edifying for some of you. See you next time.